One of the most beloved video game franchises that actually did something for its source material that's very rare, brought it more popularity, breathed life into kind of a stagnant franchise, mostly because Michael Moorcock wasn't writing any new material for Andrei Sapkowski to go ahead and blatantly rip off. Shout out Razor Fist for his Elric versus Geralt video. But the Witcher video game series, as adapted by CD Projekt Red, is super popular. I remember, because I got caught up in the hype back when The Witcher 3 was originally being released. I know, cast your minds back to way back in the cut. I had my copy pre-ordered, and I wanted to go back, and I wanted to play the original game in the franchise, work my way through that, go to Witcher 2, all in anticipation for The Witcher 3, which ultimately came out, and for the people that ended up playing it, spoilers, I kind of went through a big old phase where I would just go ahead and buy all these games, and now, even prior to owning a gigantic Steam collection, I've got more games than I can ever play in my entire life, and I don't even play that many video games anymore. I tried to play the original Witcher game, and, well, quite frankly, given the fact that it was just this simple PC port, it was really difficult to play. Like, the controls were antiquated. The visuals were very much substandard from that, the big step up that was Witcher 2, let alone, the third in the franchise. So yes, it was prime real estate for a remake, and well, we're in a time when the video game industry is just bereft of ideas and more than willing to go ahead and add a new coat of paint and then sell an old product for another $60. This is one of those games that could very much do with an update, but with all of those calls comes with a very big helping of concern, especially when you start to hear such trigger words like this. The Witcher Remake development team working to determine which aspects of original game are simply bad, outdated, and need to be remade, plan on removing the bad parts. Now, of course, if you go ahead and put your modern day lenses on, you hear a video game team, a development team you're going to go ahead and identify the bad, outdated parts that need to be remade, and then just simply removing parts of a classic. Yeah, that perks people's ears up, because for every, Dead Space remake, the remake for Resident Evil 4, I would normally name check, Final Fantasy VII Remake or Rebirth at this point in time, but those are very different from its source material in a very good way. I can't sing those games' praises enough. Actually, I don't know about Rebirth. I will just once again go ahead and pray to the Lords that that's actually going to be very good, up to the same standard that that remake set. Anyways, but if this dev team is simply talking about making quality of life improvements, upscaling the graphics, what just, was kind of clunky back in the cut, because guess what? You can criticize classics, you can update them to make them more accessible and updated, because I made mention of the Dead Space remake and the Resident Evil 4 remakes for very specific reasons, because, well, they just updated the controls to make them more player friendly, okay? Like, you don't have goofy ass tank controls anymore off rip for the RE4 remake, but you can go ahead and turn them back on if that so fits your fancy. And then all of the bugs that were associated with the original Dead Space release, they just went ahead and painted the brush over the top of that. And while the Dead Space remakes basically replaces the original release from back in the PS3 days, the RE4 remake doesn't quite do the same for the litany of re-releases that Resident Evil 4 has made. It's just simply an addition over the top of. So the Witcher remake of the original game, it could definitely go in either direction, just as long as this isn't being ideologically driven, which I know a lot of people are concerned about, but it kind of looks like, well, not going to be the bad outcome on this one. In a worrying admission that hints the upcoming title may end up falling victim to one of the worst trends in modern video gaming history, Fool Theory CEO Jakub some Polish name, has revealed that not only the studio's upcoming remake of CD Projekt Red, who that company specifically, oh boy, did they decide to go down a very deleterious path. Let's just say, pledging allegiance to the cause, the very woke cause. This production company that's doing the update doesn't seem to be falling into those trappings. But yes, the Witcher title seeks to address those parts of the original release that are simply bad, outdated, and need to be remade. But we talked about this not that long ago. I forget. It might have been in the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth video where all of this concern, all of this fear-mongering over the top of, oh, what are the producers saying? Oh, yeah, it was the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth video where they were talking about, oh, some of the things that they were talking about back in 1997, well, we couldn't do anymore. And you listen to the producers, the guys that were responsible for that absolute classic, and it's like, no, it totally makes sense. You weren't quite as well versed with, programming and script writing as you were back in the cut as you would be right now, so you could have a more nuanced approach. Yeah, totally makes sense. You guys did a great job, but completely woke free. But oh no, Tifa's titties aren't big enough, and she's wearing 2 shirts. It's like, yeah, she would wear a sports bra and an overshirt. It just it makes sense. And no, her tit, like, what the hell is wrong with you? Just go back to humping your body pillow, you absolute weirdos. But no, this is a problem with some people on one side of the discussion as opposed to the other. Guys, not everything is the culture war. Not everything is subversion. Not everything is, oh, ESG, BlackRock, Vanguard influence. Sometimes updates, outdated mechanics, they do need to be updated. And these are people working on the story that actually like the story. They aren't here, they aren't a part of the deep state, okay? They aren't here to, they're not funded by the Bilderbergs that are out there, okay? They're actually trying to do a good job, so just hear them out. Always give people the chance and give them enough rope to hang themselves. And if they don't, if they just end up fashioning a very nice rescue piece of equipment, well, hey, guess what? You found yourself an adversary in this march against terrible entertainment. I know, strange idea, but that it will be, it will completely exercise those parts and determine what to be outright bad. And as somebody who tried to play the original game, the barrier of entry with the Borky controls, it could use an update. It could use better accessibility options. I know. We'll just call this guy Ro. Provided the insight into the team's upcoming Witcher Remake during a recent interview given to Games Radar's Edge Entertainment news imprint. A former CD Projekt Red developer, that's a good sign at this point in time. A former CD Projekt Red developer, as long as he's not current, then we are A-OK. That is a green flag in my opinion. Whose tenure at the studio saw him sever as a senior quest designer. I said sever, it should have been served. He ended up severing his relationship after The Witcher 3, but he worked on Witcher 2 and Witcher 3. Wow, imagine that. Both of those are critically and commercially acclaimed. Wow, imagine that. Somebody who knows what he's doing. Ro began his time at the outlet's with the outlet's Ali Jones by explaining that he desires to tackle the first game in the series was born out of his own personal disappointment with how he missed the opportunity to do so. Wow, somebody who loves working on the franchise, that did a good job by all accounts on said franchise, and wants to go back and make it more in line with the games that everybody loves, and then, just looks at the original because let's keep it a buck. It's like, yeah, it's fine, but it's not quite Witcher 2. You could just start with Witcher 2. You can fill in a couple of the choices and it'll play fine. Don't worry about it. I wanted a chance to give it the justice it deserves. See, I like that line. Not go ahead and we need to go back and we need to reassess this and, put it on trial and make sure that those straight white men get served justice. Nothing like that. He wants to give it the justice it deserves. I like that. That's a good response. That is a W. There, Jones raised the topic of the first game's lack of polish. This is what I like to hear. While its sequels would go on to be some of the most well-regarded titles in all of video game history, Geralt's original outing was plagued with such issues as graphical glitches, lackluster combat mechanics, the subpar visuals, even though the gap between the original Witcher and Witcher 2 wasn't that long, but the step up in quality for Witcher 2 was appreciable. To which Ro revealed that first and foremost, we need an honest, down-to-earth analysis of which parts are simply bad, outdated, and need to be remade. See, with proper context, guys, don't you get a little bit more insight as to what he was talking about? Looking at the game's polish, looking at the mechanics, what worked, what didn't, what is simply bad, what is outdated, and what needs to be remade. To this end, the dev explained the analysis was being undertaken with an aim of both highlighting the parts that are great, should be retained, or are direct key pillars that can't be discarded, and removing the bad parts. That is outstanding. That's what you want to see with a remake. That's what you want to see with the games because there are so many games that are out there from the PS1, PS2 era, however that slots in for PC, okay, that are ripe for this type of facelift. And especially by people that appreciate what they're working on to begin with. And yo, check this out, if it wasn't good enough already. We are rearranging the good parts to create something that is both satisfying and still resonates with the feel of the original. I love it. That is fantastic stuff. As of writing, the results of Fool's Theory's analysis include what parts of the original The Witcher they believe are bad remain unknown to the public. However, in light of the industry's ongoing deference to the terminally offended, no, you were just trying to rage bait, when in actuality, you could just go ahead and write this article by just simply going, guys, there's a remake company, there's a studio that's actually out there that worked on the better installations into the franchise, the ones that you know and love, and they're going to be tackling the black sheep of the family, okay, and they're going to be trying to update it to meet the qualities that you've seen on the stuff that they worked on with the second and third releases. That should be met with adulation. This should be, okay, this is the direction that the industry should be going. If you want to write it like that, feel free, but if you just want to go ahead and fearmonger over the top of it, I'll go ahead and read through the squishy middle in order to come out with a much more positive appraisal. So maybe all those years ago when I tried to give the original Witcher a chance, maybe eventually when this remake does come out, I'll be able to go do my Witcher playthrough at long last. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.